All right, last time we talked about the duration of alimony in the state of Florida. Today, we're going to talk about the amount. Robin Sparks, I'm a trial attorney in the Tampa Bay area, how alimony is calculated in the state of Florida. Remember, 2023, Florida saw a huge shift in the statute, and it set two big things when you have an alimony case in your divorce. One, how long you may end up having to pay alimony. And number two, how much. That's what the trial attorneys are referring to, caps on alimony. Get into it for a second.
One, the amount of alimony under the new statute, and again, new back in 2023, talks about two different ideas of how much alimony. First, the amount of the need, meaning can the party establish that moving from an intact marriage into single life, what their need's going to be. In the past, the need was set by the standard of living during the marriage. Now the statute reads a little bit different. It says the standard of living during the marriage or what the need is post-marriage, but it can't be more. Now, it doesn't stop there, and this is where the caps come in. One, and go under the standard of living, or two, it's going to ask you to go to a coverture fraction. We'll talk about that in a second, but the big issue is cap, because the statute specifically says whichever is less. Let me repeat that. The lower, the least, the less of either the amount of the need or the coverture fraction. Coverture fraction is going to be defined by 35% of the difference between both spouses' net income. A couple words here which are big for those going through the divorce process and understanding what this really means. The word net income, that means after taxes. Florida's not going to establish the alimony on gross. So if you're a high income earner and have a bunch of W-2 income, a lot of taxes are going to come out. That's what the court's going to work with. They're going to look at the primary earning spouse. They're going to look at how much that person makes. Then they're going to look at the other spouse. They're going to look at the dominant wage earner first. They're going to figure out the net income. And then the spouse asking for alimony, they're going to also look at your net income. What are they going to do? They're going to look at a 35% difference. We're going to take income. And in the great state of Florida, there's no state income taxes, but we pay federal income taxes. Remember, the statute uses the word net. That's code for after taxes. We have both parties' net income. Now we apply the 35% difference rule, and that's going to serve as your cap. Remember, the court system cannot, even if you go to trial, even if the judge finds that you should be getting more, they cannot order any more than this 35%. And that's where the lawyering comes in. Is the 35% difference, or is the standard of living less? That's the one that the person paying alimony is going to get. The alimony statute specifically provides whichever is less. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, it's called a cap. So when you come into your trial lawyer, your family law, your divorce attorney's office, they can now, under the statute, tell you this is where you're going to fall somewhere in terms of the alimony caps. In the past, you couldn't because it all went to the standard of living. Standard of living could get huge for those, especially living beyond their means, could get very big. Florida's come in and said, hey, we want to cut down these giant alimony awards, and that's why they figured out a two-part structure. One, standard of living, if reasonable enough, or two, if it's too big, we're going to cap it and we're going to give you no more than 35% of the differences in income. Now, last question is state of Florida. What this law really also says is that everybody works. They're not going to let you board a zero. Why is that important? Your stay-at-home moms, raising families, they come in and say, great, 35% of zero. Nope. The law's going to come in. They're going to impute numbers to you. What does that mean? They're going to impute income as if you were in the workforce by your training, your experience, and what you can do. That's a whole nother topic. That's Getting Serious from the Get Serious Studios on the issue of how alimony is calculated, the amount of alimony in your divorce.